Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another book reading with me, Richard Vobes, on the Bald Explorer channel. It's 4 o'clock here on the 20th of November 2000. Excuse me, in 18. That's some coffee going down badly. And we are here gathered so that we can do some more reading. Or I'm going to do the reading, hopefully okay today. It's lovely to see you. Gathering there, already 25 people of you waiting, which is fantastic. Hello to the lovely Julia, who is in charge of our chat room, making sure everybody is okay. And to Justin Jones, Tall Podge, good afternoon. The Green Man has turned up from foggy North Downs. Hello to you, the Green Man. John F., good afternoon. Billabong O'Neill, nice to see you. Holly and Co., which is lovely to see you too. Lee Lawson, hi to you. Philip Hammond and Mary, I'm wearing one of your fantastic jumpers. Mary, people keep asking me, do you sell your jumpers? And I've been meaning to ask you, do you sell them? Let me know. If you don't, then don't get in touch, obviously. But if you do and you want to have a few commissions, let me know, because there's a few people who've been in touch with me. Andrew Norris, what ho, Vobsters, lovely to see you. Linda Kane, Audrey Forbes, Days of Yore, or even Day of Yore. Karen Biscaris, nice to see you. 'Twas the Night Before poem by Christmas, Clement C. Moore. Okay. And Stephen Gully, good afternoon to you. Alan Leggett, hello. Very good. It is. I've started having tea and a snack since I started watching these readings. Didn't before. I blame Richard. Are you putting on weight? It's the lockdown weight. That's what you blame it on. Next year, when this is all over, we'll all be meeting up regularly for walks over the downs, and we can lose lots of weight together. But until then, enjoy the tea and cake. We are on chapter 3 of this interesting book. I shouldn't lean it on my... I've got that, you can't see that, but there is a mixing desk. Oh, that's what I'm looking for. My glasses case. To rest the book. We're on chapter 3. Oh, yes, I should just tell you, you probably gathered this, but On Southern English Roads by James John Hissey, or is it the other way around? I never quite... Yeah, James John Hissey. So... all good stuff. Right. Let us. Mary, yes, makes them to order. Oh, fantastic. Well done, Mary. That would be great. I will tell people, and shall I just give them your email address? Is that the best? Okie dokie. Chapter 3. Where were we? Halland House. Old Halland House, we found, had been mostly pulled down, and the rest of the structure converted into a humble though pleasant farmhouse. Actually, I'm not gonna use that. It's easier for me to hold it. I need a something about that sort of, like proper. Can you buy proper book rests? Maybe those things that you can get for iPads. Those sort of bean bags. That's probably what I need. A little bean bag. If anyone's got one and knows where I can get one, that would be good. The tenant kindly gave us permission to look round the place, and we gathered something of the original scope of the ancient edifice from the wall that surrounded the large farm garden and orchard of old gnarled trees. This had apparently formed the boundary of the mansion, and had been left a few feet high to do the duty described. Inside the garden wall, at intervals here and there, were arched recesses, and a ruined fireplace with their broken moss and ivy-grown mantles that told plainly enough of the old moral of departed greatness and the mutability of things. Over the entrance door of the farmhouse we observed a weather-worn stove, having the date 1575 cut on the top. Below this was a shield bearing on the left hand a representation of the famous Pelham buckle, and on the right of a peacock proper. That is at least what we made it out to be. We further noticed a string course of stones with a running ornament of Pelham buckles. These ornamented stones were probably relics of the old Halland house worked up on the building. Rambling about the farmyard, we discovered there a high structure of brick with well-designed stone mullioned windows, mostly blocked up. This, now employed as a barn, we imagine might possibly have been stables of the mansion, the height being accounted for as providing sleeping rooms for the men above. Actually, that's quite interesting because Julia and I went to the Crown in Cootham, and there opposite, apparently, the Crown, which is this pub, Coaching Inn. I've lost my space now. Come on, Vobes, get your act together. And it was quite a tall, and they said that it was a house made out of the stables. And when you look at it, it's a two-storey thing with a very huge, prominent roof, hung-tiled roof. And I thought to myself, it doesn't look like stables, it looks more like a barn. But if it was tall stables that you could put people in, maybe as a coaching inn, some guests or the coachman or what have you would have slept above it. So maybe that is what it was, not a barn as I suspected. So it's interesting, isn't it? Right, where were we? So the height of the mansion accounted for as providing sleeping rooms for the men above, such an arrangement being not uncommon in the 16th century homes of the nobility. One of the farm hands we questioned, however, told us that it was called the Old Granary, as in many country places the original names out of the buildings are frequently retained for generations following, though they have outlived their first use. So it may possibly have been one, though why a simple granary would have been built so needlessly high and have been provided, moreover with a number of large stone mullioned windows, was not easy to explain. To prove how tenuously the ancient names of buildings are preserved in rural places, even when for many more recent years they've been put to other purposes than that which they were first intended, I give here the following authentic little experience of mine. While staying at an old coaching inn, here we go, I overheard the landlord tell a servant to go to the pack house and fetch some article. Being anxious to know what a pack house was, I took an opportunity of glancing in it and discovered a harness room. So, never losing an opportunity of gaining information, I asked the landlord if a harness room was called a pack house in that locality. No, he replied. I don't wonder the title puzzled you. The fact is, long even before turnpikes, there was an inn here, and that is the only part of the old building still standing. Travellers then, I've been told, often used to go about the country on horseback with their things in packs. Those were stored in a place, and it has ever gone by the name of the pack house, and it always will, I expect, till it tumbles down. And then if we put a fresh building in its place, 100 to 1, they will still call it the new pack house. By which it would appear that John Bull is of a very conservative nature when the names of places and things are concerned. Even on the modern railway, the old terms that prevailed in the coaching age are preserved. The engine sheds are professionally known as stables. The railway carriages are called coaches, and the ticket office is still labelled the booking office. The last, in spite of the fact that nowadays one takes tickets and does not book places. That's interesting, isn't it? This book is quite chatty, but it's got these little titbits, which is quite interesting. I hadn't thought of that. Stables for the carriages. I wonder if that's still true. And coaches. You always think, oh, yes, we get on the coach. But, of course, that must have come from the coaches. That's interesting. Our walk onto Lawton Place took more time than we expected. The 2 miles, even though they led through pleasantly wooded country, seemed over long ones. And when we reached Lawton Village, we came to first, we found on inquiry that Lawton Place was still another mile on the other side of it, and we had to make our way over there over a narrow, rough and very rutted road that wound about in a provoking, indirect manner. However, as we trudged along, we could see the tower of the ancient house standing prominently forth out of the extensive level plain, showing a dark and telling spot in the sun-suffused landscape. All else around was charged with radiant light, wide and open, as if it was a summer's day. Arriving at some cottages, we deserted our uneven road for a field path that led direct to the remains of the decayed mansion, and passing over one or two rickety wooden footbridges that spanned some stagnant ditches, we arrived at the side of the broad moat that surrounds the present diminished building and its garden. The tall tower is nearly all that's left of the once stately and fortified home of the Pelhams, but the extensive amount of ground, possibly 3 acres or more, enclosed by the moat attests the former size and importance of the place. The tower is now incorporated with a lowly farmhouse. This latter, though modern in comparison with the ancient structure that rises so picturesquely from it, is by no means of yesterday, judging from its time-stained appearance. The farmhouse, with sundry outbuildings, besides gardens and orchards, are all within the moat, which is crossed by 2 bridges, the one a slight wooden structure, the other of arched brick. Let into the chimneys here we observed several stones carved with the Pelham buckle. He will not let that buckle away, will he? The tower is of much interest and has terracotta ornamentations, a very rare thing to find in Old English buildings, although made great use of by the grand and unique gateway of Layer Marney in Essex. And there's a footnote here that says, described very fully in a tour of the phaeton through the eastern countries, if you care to look that up. It's probably some even rarer to find Victorian piece of encyclopedia, no doubt. Anyway, one of the very few structures of its kind and period in which this material was employed, and suggested of an Italian craftsman. So what would they call that? Would they call that Italiana? What do they call those Italian-looking buildings? They give them a name as architectural name, isn't it? Can't remember. The Tower of Lawton Place is of brick, possibly owing to want of any good stone within reach, though flints might have been procured from the Downs, only a few miles off. But flints did not seem to commend themselves to the builders. We noticed that the tower was of a very dark grey. With age, we imagined, though it may have become darker, thus by the smoke of years from the farmhouse chimneys below it. At the side of the tower, which is a tall square structure of considerable size, there projects an octagonal building, evidently containing the staircase. The ancient English architects, it may be noted, took no trouble to conceal the interior arrangements of their edifices. Indeed, they seemed rather to glory in revealing them. Their exteriors were the simple outcome and expression of interior requirements. So what they lost in uniformity, they gained in convenient planning and picturesqueness. The tower is now supported by tall buttresses, though these now look old enough. They are probably of a later period, added to uphold a weakened structure. An inscription on the front of the house, done in raised letters round the initials WP and ornamented with the inevitable buckle, informs us that L'an de Grace, 1534, fête sa maison Facey. Must be French. No idea what it means. So that there can be no mistake as to the date of the original building. Right, 1534 then, I'm assuming that is. Strolling round to obtain the best point of view of the old place in order to make a sketch, we found a picturesque group of outbuildings rising from the moat that appeared to us to be coeval with the tower. Interesting word. Coeval. Coeval. Coval. With the tower. But the bricks of these had become whitey grey, contrasting greatly with the dark tone of the tower. Lawton Place was built in the early part of the 16th century by Sir William Pelham, a right doughty knight. His son, Sir Nicholas Pelham, no less a valiant warrior on the sea than his father was on land, defeated the French in a determined descent on Seaford, a feat that is recorded in his mural monument in St. Michael's Church at Lewes, above which is placed the helmet he possibly wore in the encounter. The helmet still retains traces of gilt and colouring. His valour's proof, his manly virtue's praise, cannot be marshalled in this narrow room. His brave exploit in great King Henry's days among the worthies hath a worthier tomb. What time the French sought to have sack sea ford, this Pelham did repel back abroad. Orbit, 15th of December, Anno Domini, 1559. Interesting. Right, I'm just going to look up to see what this place looks like, because I think that would be interesting. Lawton Place. Let's have a quick gander at that, shall we? See if we can find an image of it. And whether it's still standing 100 years ago, we are, of course, looking at 120 years ago. I have to remember that this is 120 years ago. I've just turned that off, which is no good. Lawton Place, Sussex. Here we go. Lawton Place looks like a pub. Hang on a minute. I've been to Lawton. That's in East Sussex, isn't it? Lawton is a village in the district of East Sussex. Wait a minute. This is a bit odd. Hang on. Let's see if we can share this so you can see where we're talking. Lawton Place, Sussex. Lawton holiday at Lawton Place. Let's have a look for an image. Oh, there's the tower. So it looks like the farmhouse has vanished. Has the farmhouse vanished? Here's an image of what it may have looked like. Well, that doesn't. Full size and printable. Lawton Place in Sussex. Interesting looking building. Does it give us a date? Doesn't give us a date for that. But anyway, that's potentially what it did look like. Let's go back to here. This is an old photo. This looks great. Oh, here we are. Look at that. Oh, it's the Landmark Trust. I think Linda Kane said it. Corville, the same age as Coville. How do you pronounce that? Could someone give me a pronunciation on that? That's a lovely word. I love this. I love this bit where you get... Can I... Oh, look at that. The tower, because they made it into rooms. How interesting. 3rd floor, 2nd floor. What a lovely place. Now, if I had the money... Look, isn't that beautiful? If I had the money, that's what I would buy. A little contained tower. Wouldn't that be perfect? I'd sit up the top there in that window, reading my books out loud. And Julia would be up in the tower. Actually, Julia would probably be up there. And I would be saying, Julia, let down your purple hair. And then I would clamber up here like this. Clamber, 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 clamber. And she would say, don't clamber up here. You've got a show to do. Go and do the bloody show, you swine. There's a bedroom. Look at that. So you can stay the night. 4 nights, 366 quid. £22 per person, sleeps 4. Wouldn't that be nice? Near Lewes. Do you know, very tempted to do that as a Bald Explorer thing. Love this sort of stuff. Trouble is, where's the picture gone? Anyway, I digress, but that's a nice one. Can I see that view image? Is that the farmhouse? Is that the farmhouse? I wonder. Anyway, sorry about that. Got somewhat distracted on that, but it's interesting, isn't it? £366, quite a lot. That's more than my windscreen cost me. But it would be lovely to do that. That's just for one night. Well, that's for 4 people for one night. But it would be good, wouldn't it, to do that? Could make a great long video of one night. Take 4 people. How many bedrooms are there? See, that's the thing. Take a few people, go and spend the night there and do a video about it, and, you know, spend the whole... You'd want to... I suppose you get check-in at lunchtime, and you've got all afternoon. And if you've got a good... You know, this is the problem. If you've got a great day, it would make a fantastic, like in that image. But if it was crap, it would be a lot of money down the thing. But the thing is, if I could reach up to about 20 or 30,000 viewers on my Bald Explorer channel, you could approach them and say, look, can I have a night for free? I'm going to promote it and see what it's like. And then all the best people would want to stay there. So that Richard Vobes has stayed there. I hope they've washed the sheets. That's not terribly pricey for 4, says Linda Kane. Good value. All right, okay. Yeah, we're going to stay there. We were going to stay there once, says Lee Lawson, in 1982 when our son was very young, but it's not suitable for children because of the stairs. I think there is water too. I hope there is water. I wonder if the tower is haunted. Charles Lawton, the bells, I called her Juliet. Isn't that was what he said about one of the bells? I called her Juliet. The bells. The bell. Yes, he was brilliant in The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Anyway, in the reign of Elizabeth, it appears that Lawton Place was deserted for the then newly erected mansion at Halland. Possibly the family had become tired of the flat, marsh-like country around the former spot, albeit there were fine and far-reaching views of the South Downs to be had from Lewes, stretching south-westward to the sea. But our ancestors had not learnt of the refined value of a view. Neither had the poetry and romance of the estate agent's catalogue been imagined. Most probably the Pelhams erected their fortified home at low-lying Lawton owing to the ease of establishing there the needful moat for defence, which from its position could not be drained dry during a siege. Every Englishman's house is his castle had an actual and pregnant meaning in those far-off days. I feel sure from the numbers of moated homes that I've seen in this historic old England of ours, that low-lying positions were so generally selected by notable medieval families in which to erect their residences on account of the water supply for the moat, and not because they sought out or desired sheltered spots, as has been imagined by some authorities. Fancy a rough, bold knight of old considering for a moment such a thing when he was selecting a site whereon to build an abode. Verily, it is enough to make such a one turn uneasily in his grave beneath his marble effigy for anything of the sort, even to be whispered of him. I have remarked upon the fine and extensive view of the Downs from Lawton Place. It was this view that aroused the enthusiasm of White of Selborne. Again we hear his name. And as the aforementioned, caused him to term them the majestic chain of mountains. This saying of White's has been the cause of much comment and cheap criticism by those whose chief knowledge of the Downs country would appear to have been derived from the railway ride to Brighton. Yet, strangely enough, as I was looking at the range in question from near Lewes one cloudy day in June, when the silvery sea mists were rolling in stately masses along the continuous summits of the Downs, lifting and drifting now and again as to reveal their vast undulations, a friend who was with me, a true mountain lover, remarked, "How mountainous they look! It is much a matter of sentiment and how you see things. My friend considers Snowdon to be far more impressive than Mont Blanc because of its fine peak-like form that uprises from its broad base at such a pointed angle and is so sharply defined against the sky, just as a mountain should be." Retracing our steps, we passed again through the pretty little village of Lawton, in the church of which lie the past generations of the Pelhams. Some of the cottages here looked very picturesque, especially the old post office, whose roof was partly thatched and partly tiled, the structure below being a happy combination of brick, half timber, rough casting and weather tiling, the manifest outgrowth of a long life given to even so humble a building its own little history, and within a dignity that no modern cottage can possess. The variety of the material, too, gave a variety of colour and quality that made the old post office a tempting subject for a sketch, though we never made one, for the longest day comes to an end, and we had 2 good miles to walk and several more to drive before we had reached our proposed evening's destination. Moreover, we had attempted to draw or paint even a small portion of the picturesque old places and scenic gems that presented themselves to us on the way in such endless profusion, we should have acquired quite a bulky stock of sketch-books, and had we not hardened our hearts from time to time, we should very soon have exhausted our supply of photographic films. Heaven forbid you exhaust your supply of photographic films. Here I may remark, though the statement may sound somewhat paradoxical, that we did a good share of our driving tour on foot. Not only did we oftentimes make digressions, like the present one, from our main route, but for the pure pleasure of the thing, we frequently got down from the dog cart and walked considerable distances, besides most of the hills, and from driving to tramping was an agreeable change, and the reverse was equally so. Now, I'm just going to pause there because there is a picture here. I don't know what this refers to. A Haunt of Ancient Peace, 1695. It doesn't actually say where this is, so maybe one of those clever people out there can identify it. So I'm going to stick the Sketchogram cam on. And here we go. I don't know if that will focus itself up. What a lovely place. How about that? Would you not like to live there? It looks like there's a little dovecot in the right-hand corner. Certainly the right as I look at it. Very picturesque. They were the days when people had homes to be proud of. I don't think that's a wimpy house. Oops. Press the button. Carol Glue, I understand that you met the lovely Julia in a supermarket near here. How wonderful. I wish I'd been there to meet you and your partner. When on foot, we took the advantage provided of exploring any tempting path or pretty lane that suggested a rewarding ramble, or being likely to lead us to any haunt of ancient peace. Oh, that was the picture there, the haunt of ancient peace. Besides ever and again indulging in the pleasure of gathering sweet nosegays of wild flowers from the tangled hedgerows that they love so well. I could not exchange an old-fashioned nosegay I would not exchange an old-fashioned nosegay culled from the countryside for the finest boutique of hothouse flowers that highly paid gardeners produce with so much cost and care, for to me the first is so much more beautiful and the more lovable from old associations. Why, our wild flowers are so lightly esteemed, except by boys and girls who gather them, but to throw them away again, I cannot understand. Take, for instance, their beauty. The hardy daffodils that need no tending, but but simply beg to be left alone, brightening the earth with their tossing yellows like moving patches of sunshine. The poppies, with their burning reds, the very acme of colour. But I will not enumerate them in this catalogue fashion, or I should fill a page. They are all familiar enough, only it is their beauty that we do not see. I must, however, beg space to mention the glorious foxglove that rises up so stately from the ground with its many rich crimson bells. What perfect tints, modelling, and grace of form! Were this truly splendid flower delicate and rare, only to be produced in a hothouse at great expense, how we should all admire and rave about it. But, like a glorious golden sunset, it is commonplace. Who would rave about the beauty of a thing that all can see and costs nothing? And that's a very interesting point, isn't it? Again, it's like art. It's like art. Put something in a frame and everyone goes, oh, yeah, no, look at that. It's nice, isn't it? That's the Haywain by Constable. Oh, yeah, look at that countryside. It's lovely, isn't it? But stand them in the countryside in a similar position, and it's like, yeah, it's nice, yeah, nice bit of countryside. It's true. Sometimes things need to have that framing for people to actually notice. We're not like that, are we? We don't need the framing. We know it's lovely. These little impromptu explorations were our special delight. When travelling through a fresh country, even though it be a portion of your own, what delightful surprises, scenic and otherwise, may be in store for you. There is ever a certain fascination about the unknown. Throughout our tour, we were always kept in a charming state of expectancy. Each day was stored with good things for us. The true beauty of the land is only revealed to the leisurely road traveller who takes his own time as he jogs on and his ample ease at his inn. We happily combined all the advantages of a pedestrian outing with the comforts of a driving tour. It's not an easy book to turn the pages, I have to say. When we tired of walking and exploring, there was always a rest and a comfortable seat within hail, or, if a comparatively uninviting stretch of country had to be traversed, we could pass through it at a good pace without causing ourselves any weariness. We walked unencumbered, but with everything that we could possibly want, even down to little luxuries at command. He just liked to sort of wax lyrical quite a bit about, pretty much nothing. Van Man, yes. Arriving back again at East Hoathly, we set forth for Uckfield, and so along bypaths and indirect crooked ways that led us through a country made beautiful with gentle hills, shady dales, and far-spreading woods, and we found our way to the little village of Isfield. Had we driven thither, I'm just thinking, Isfield that's old, what's his name, Culpepper's territory, isn't it? He was born in Isfield. What's his name? Not Francis Culpeper. What was his name? Somebody Culpeper. Famous apothecary bloke. Anyway, that was just a side-by-side. I wonder if he'll mention him. We had driven thither through slightly out of our direct road because we had heard of an interesting old moated house nearby and wished, of course, that we could see it. An old moated house, I never saw a modern moated house, so the adjective is hardly needed, is to us much as the proverbial red rag to a bull. We must go after it at once, if not sooner, as my wife has it. What a number of moated homes still remain to us in England, which plainly proves how plentiful there must have been in times past, and what unwritten histories and unrecorded romances must have been. I gathered during my various driving experiences, quite a host of more or less curious and in some cases even thrilling traditions connected with these old homes. The relating of these stories and traditions is a delight to some of the old-fashioned country folk. They really seem to believe them, weird and wonderful though they be. What a mine of wealth lies here for a novel writer of the old romantic school. Harrison Ainsworth confessed that he availed himself of the local traditions he had picked up on his various ancient homes and worked them into his books. These old wives' fails are out of fashion now. Even the Christmas numbers of the illustrated papers have given up the haunted house, the ghostly chamber, and the like. Steam and electricity have almost ruined romance and made the world so convenient and commonplace, yet withal so dull that the query has been seriously asked by the wealthy and leisured, not by the poor, is life worth living? It has taken generations to perfect these old crusted traditions, and now even a schoolboy laughs at them to scorn. Tomorrow other traditions may follow the same fate. The scientific man will ask for proofs, and of some things no proofs can be given. It struck us, as we drove into Isfield, which seemed a somewhat rambling village, that possibly the church might be worth seeing, for former experience has taught us that where there has existed a fine mansion belonging to an ancient family, there is inevitably to be found near the church some more or less an interesting record of it, whether in the shape of a private chapel or a stately monument, a quaint brass or curious inscription. Once we were shown one of these private family chapels, and to our astonishment noticed that there was a well-filled library attached to it. So should the sermon be tedious or prove too long, the select worshippers, hidden by a screen from the common congregation, could retire unseen to the library and read a while. A clever idea. Though I must confess that the ancient and ponderous tomes gathered within had all the theological basis and appeared to me as dry and dull as any discourse could be, and perchance as unprofitable. Seeing an intelligent-looking lad loitering by the roadside, much occupied in doing nothing, we asked him the way to the church, and also if he knew whether the door were open, and if not, where we could get the keys. And this was the lucid reply we received. "If you wants the church, you best go straight on till you come to the Ornhouse. There be a gate alongside it and a pathway that leads you direct to the church. The key be at Mr. Dash's, the church warden as it is. You best call and ask for it." Now, that's interesting because I've been to this church, and if you go through Isfield and you start where the railway is, which they have a vintage line, which I think you can dine on at Isfield. I think, is it the Cress line, the Watercress line or something? And you go through you go over the old gates, the crossing, the old railway crossing, which is, there's no trains there, obviously, but you go over it. You follow the village, and it is this rambling long village, and you go on and on and on, and you pass a mill, an old-fashioned mill. I wonder if you'll mention that, which has seen better days. And then, not far after that, there's a turning on the left, and then there's this long old driveway up to the church in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by fields and nothing else. And it's just a church. The church itself is sort of very late Georgian, early Victorian sort of thing. It might have been older. And so when he described that as you go down this lane, I thought that's interesting. It's absolutely accurate, you know. Now, this is an excellent specimen of the way some country people, bless their dense heads, will innocently direct you. As we have never been in the place before that day and knew no one there, naturally Orne House and Mr. Dashes did not convey much meaning or help to us. In another little country town we were directed to a certain place thus: "You just go down the street till you comes to old Barbarus's, and the first turning past his house." Now, the name, etc. Now, the name Barbarus struck us, and on further inquiry, we found that the unfortunate man's real name was, say, Jones. "But we all calls him Barbarus because—" Then there came an awkward pause. "Well, why?" we asked, but after all, no explanation was vouchsafed. Vouchsafed? Is that how it's pronounced? Vouchsafed, as in 2 words? This was tantalizing, for our curiosity was aroused, but we had to form our own conjectures. Now, not knowing about the whereabouts of Mr. Dash's abode, we concluded that it would save time and trouble to make a contract with the lad to go and get the key for us. This we concluded for the sum of 6pence. The lad jumped at the offer and at once started off at a run, shouting back to us to keep straight on till you get to the Orne House, and I'll meet you there. We drove slowly along and eventually pulled up at a neat little cottage by the side of what we observed a footpath that led towards the church, the tower thereof being plainly visible above some woods some distance away. "This must be the Orne House," we both simultaneously exclaimed. So we waited there, and in a short time the boy, key in hand, duly made his appearance, a little out of breath in his eagerness to be speedy. He offered to walk with us to the church and to take the key back without any further fee, so we closed with the offer. He was a bright, civil lad and interested us. As we trudged along the fields, we questioned him about himself. It appeared that his father had been a carter, but was now a gardener. He, the lad, was 11 years old and worked at tending sheep, and sometimes as a carter's boy. "How much wage do you get?" "Well, not too much. 6pence a day is what I gets, and I have to walk a mile to my work. I'm out of work just now." We learnt, moreover, that the height of his ambition was to take a long railway journey as far as Brighton. "We can hear the trains in the valley at Orne Home." Orne, I think that's Owenholme. There's the breakfast train, the dinner train, and the supper train. Railways is very useful as clocks. I don't know how we would do without Orne. It is instructive as well as interesting to see the world sometimes as others do. It moreover struck us as a grand testimony to the punctuality of the infrequent trains on this branch line that they should serve the purpose of a clock. So, however, did the mail coaches in the old days, the country folk setting their watches and timekeepers by them. Provincial people are, however, not always particular to a few minutes. I remember well, whilst waiting for the arrival of a friend at a certain station on one of the sleepy Sussex lines, observing a ruddy-faced farmer running up to the platform just after the train, a good 5 minutes later, had started. "Well, you're mighty particular," he exclaimed irately to the solitary porter. "I bain't more than a bit behind." On our way to the church, we suddenly and unexpectedly caught sight of, a little to our right, the ancient mansion of Isfield Place, which we had come to see. I shall not readily forget the thrill of pleasure the first vision of this gave me, enclosed as it was by its curious massive outer walls and restored watch-towers at each corner. Now, when I went there, I never saw that. This fine old home has manifestly been much modernised, but it still retains a look of genuine antiquity, and sufficient of the original structure remains to make it exceedingly interesting and attractive to the antiquity, archaeologist and artist. Isfield Place was formerly the residence of the Shirleys, an ancient Sussex family of note, and their coat of arms and motto still exist, boldly carved in stone above the entrance doorway. This small, though important part of the building, and this only, suggests classical work, but the pillars support nothing and are purely decorative, as was frequently the case in mansions of the period. All the rest of the fabric is essentially English in feeling. I'm going to have to look that up now. What is this? Isfield Place. Where is that? Because when I went to Isfield, the church, it wasn't there. Wasn't Barbarous... I don't know how you... Barabbas, is it? Barabbas in the New Testament? A thief, possibly. The church is a long walk from the village. Yes, the Lavender Line. Oh, yes, the Lavender Line. Yes, that's right. Is it the Lavender Line? Yes, that's right. Michael White says he was murdered. Murdered. There's been a murder. They offered him up to the crowd instead of Jesus. The strange thing was his name was actually Jesus, Barabbas. Maybe that's why they offered him up. Let's have a quick gander, Miranda, at whatever it is, Isfield Place. I need a little thingy to open up here. Isfield... Oh, my goodness. Okay, hang on. Let me share the image. Isfield Place. Oh, there it is. There's the station. Images. Let's have a look. Is that Isfield Place? Oh, my giddy aunt. Look at that. Well, where's it gone? That's very strange. Just vanished. No, I've done that. I just pressed that. What about view image? Hang on. Nice ornamental gardens and things. But that's not what we want to look at. Oh, wait a minute. That's Buckingham Hall. Beg your pardon. Buckingham Hall. Buckingham Hall. That's not it. Isfield Place. Oh, Buckham Hall. Not Buckingham. Isfield Place Restoration. That looks like a big picture. Which is now not coming. It is very slow. Oh, I keep pressing the same sodding button. There we are. Look, mullioned windows. Well, mullioned windows there. Well, sort of. Big old chimney. Okay. Brick. Brick. Very old looking brick. Probably had a great big pond. Probably where... I bet there's a lake or something. Because when they used to build these early houses out of brick, they would get the bricks from the locality, and often... Oh, is this the thing he's talking about? There's at the entrance, Isfield Place Restoration. That's the entrance there, then. That's what he's talking... So they get the bricks, these old bricks, which is in English bond. If you know your bricks, look at that. It's in English bond. And they would dig them out from a great big hole, often at the back of the house, and then they'd hand make the bricks, build the house, and then they had this dirty great hole where they extracted the clay to make the bricks. So they used to fill that with water, and you had a lake. So that's why sometimes you see these big mansions and they've got this beautiful lake, and actually the reason the lake is there is because of the bricks. For sale for 8 million, just under 9 million. A snip, says Linda Kane. Marvellous. Magnificent grade 2 listed country house protected by its own land. I like that. Protected by its own land. Does the land come up and go, oh, what do you want, mate? What do you want? The bushes come out and attack you like triffids. Looks beautiful. How interesting. SJC, Sean James Cameron, is that? In 1507, John Shirley acquired the manor of the oldest parts of Isfield Place and may have been built on his orders. Oh, there we are. How interesting. Right, we've nearly finished today's Yes, we nearly come to the end of this chapter, so that would be a good place to finish off Finish off, dear boy. Finish off the week. It would appear that the house was originally erected in the centre of a considerable sized plot of ground of some acres in extent. This was surrounded by a high wall for defensive purposes. From this wall, watchtowers rose at intervals, the lower portions of which are still intact. Beyond the wall was the wide moat, so that Isfield Place must be considered to have been a strongly fortified home. Now, the moat may have actually provided the bricks. The arrangement of a surrounding high outer wall and watchtowers is very unusual in England, and the two watchtowers, though merely restorations, give the place a delightfully quaint and picturesque appearance. The buildings, as a whole, make a most effective group, and seen from a short distance, the old and the more recent blend well together. The modern alterations and additions are not too aggressively apparent, and except to the experienced eye would probably not be specially noticeable. We observed a clipped yew hedge bordering the entrance court or garden, and some time-toned outbuildings beyond, apparently unaltered. We judged these to be the original stables. A rookery at the farther end of the place added to its charms. A moss-encrusted sundial and some peacocks proudly strutting about the terraces would have been pleasingly appropriate, but one can't have everything. The present owner deserves the thanks of all lovers of the picturesque and never returning past. Let me read that again. The present owner deserves the thanks of all lovers of the picturesque and never returning past for having... Oh, I see what you're trying to say there. The present owner, sorry, I will get it right. The present owner deserves the thanks of all lovers of the picturesque and never returning past for having preserved so far the ancient character and features of the old place. Having sketched and photographed this unique old world home, we proceeded without further delay to the church, for the day was growing old, and we still wished to make the most of the light that was still left. And that, my friends, is the end of this chapter, and we are on chapter 4 on Mundaddy. So how about that? That's an interesting looking gaff, isn't it? Is this your gaff, mate? Yeah, it's my gaff. It's a nice gaff. Is that an old image of it as it was? Let's have a look at that. Oh, it's titchy. It's no bleeding good, is it? Does that get bigger? Isfield Place is the formal, compartmentalised garden laid out in the 19th century to the west and the south of an Elizabethan manor house. The surviving elements of garden and landscape feature from the 16th century onwards. There's a sketch of something. Stands on natural prominence surrounded by low-lying ancient domain land of the manor of Isfield, approximately a kilometre northwest of the village of Isfield and 10 kilometres northeast of Lewes. The site, covering 123 hectares, is bordered by the west by the River Ouse, to the south of the River Uck, and Lodgewood to the north, and Piltdown Road to the east. Oh, yes, it's very nice, I tell you. It's very, very, very nice. If you've got a small fortune, you can move in. Let's have a look, see if there's anything else of interest. It's funny how they just only shown bits of the bloody gatehouse. I want to see a bit more. Well, you can't, you see, you can't. That's the overview, isn't it? The best 2060 country house for sale. I keep pressing that button and it goes to the wrong place. Let's have a look at the picture. Well, these are the towers here. Curtained wall. I wonder if there's any of the moat left. Is the moat still there? Anybody know? Country life. 12 houses for sale. That's a nice one. Alderley House in Wootton in Gloucestershire. Oxfordshire, Cheddington, the Manor House in Hampshire, Berriton. Yeah, it's going to be area. Isfield Place. An idyllic Grade 2 listed 8-bedroom manor set out in 187 acres of formal gardens, pasture and woodland on the banks of the River Ouse. Historic Isfield Place dates from the early 16th century and enjoys glorious unspoilt views towards South Downs. Relaunched on the market in May 2016, it found a buyer in August at the guide price of $7.15 million. So he knocked them down a bit then, didn't he? Because you said... What did you say? It was for sale at $8 million. They knocked them down in 2016, but maybe it's been sold since. Very, very nice. Very nice indeed. Thank you very much. Very good. Anyway, enough of this gay banter. We have to end the show. Just mailed you a link to the sales page. There are over 25 pictures of the land. Oh, right. Hang on a minute, ladies and gentlemen. Let's just, before we go, we've got a couple of minutes left. You know what it's like here. Inbox, Richard Vobes. Hang on, I've got to get to the right email. Otherwise, mail.vobes. Let's have a look and see what happens. Sean James Cameron. On the market. It's on the market. Oh, I did go there. Do you want to reject all those cookies? I don't want any of those cookies, thank you. They make you fat, don't they? 8.7, where is it? The 7 bedrooms for sale. Okay, let's just... I'm here. Oh, here we are, 8 bedrooms. Why is it greyed out? Is that because I said I didn't want the... It's probably because I said I didn't want the bloody pictures. Sorry about that. What you're seeing is not the... Oh, that's hideous. Oh, that's hideous. That's hideous. No, I don't like all that. No, you can keep all that. Swimming pool, keep that. Don't want it. I'm sorry, I can't give you the full... I don't know why it's greyed out. It's probably because I've done something stupid. Maybe if I refresh the page. Doesn't make any bloody difference, does it? Photos. Anyway, you get the idea. Whole horrible thing. Too big for me. I'd much rather have that tower, the whatever tower it was that we saw. That would be much nicer. I'm sure that's probably $1 million or so anyway. But that's just too avant-garde, isn't it? I mean, what sort of person would have a place like that? Anyway, it's just sold, so that's all right. It's just sold. They sold it. Oh, that's greyed out. Why? It's because it's sold. Oh, I see. Vobes Towers. Yes, I like the Lawton place. Was it the that would be nice. That's for me. Get a few books in there, couldn't you? Anyway, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been absolutely marvellous. I will see you on Monday now. Excuse me, there'll be a couple of videos over the weekend, but no reading and no other things, just the usual. But thank you very much, which would just suit a rundown farmhouse. Yes, that would also work. A rundown farmhouse, timber framed, of course, with my Essie and a big stack of logs and all of that. Talking of logs, I've got to go and light the Essie and warm the place up. Thank you so much for joining me. Look after yourselves. Take care. Be good. And I will catch you next week. Until then, have a good weekend. Thanks to the lovely Julia for making sure everybody's all right. And thanks for coming and visiting. And bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.